Welcome, my name is Christopher Peter. Another week of great NFL action. As always, let us start with my Philadelphia Eagles and then we will get to the rest of the league in a bit. The Philadelphia Eagles traveled to the Twin Cities to take on the Minnesota Vikings and their former starting quarterback in Carson Wentz. Originally, their backup, but started the last 4 games as J.J. McCarthy has proven to be a little bit injury-prone over his first 2 years in the league, which may be troubling when it comes time to decide whether to pick up his 5-year option. For Eagles fans, it was another opportunity to show up the former starting quarterback that reportedly chose a trade and a fresh start rather than try to regain his previous starting role with the Eagles. Personally, I do not hold any animosity towards Carson Wentz. He was a significant reason the Eagles won our first Super Bowl, and starting over probably made the most sense at the time. For Wentz, the matchups against his former team have not really gone well for him. During his stint in Washington, he played in their home game against the Eagles and was sacked I believe 7 times and lost the game. This did not go much better for him, but he did manage to stay upwards more often this time around. But, the damage from his poor passing performance at the start of the game had an impact on the game. Throwing a pick six following simulated pressure from the Eagles' defense helped the Eagles get out in front early by more than 1 score. He followed it up with an errant pass that wound up in our rookie safety's hands. That is the typical Carson Wentz experience. He forces throws when he probably should have taken a safer option, also known as the Foles option. But he does also make some great plays at the same time. So you basically have to hope that at the end of the game it balances itself out in your team's favor, which it almost did. In the second half, he became the good Wentz that we loved in Philly, making plays where it seemed like nothing was available, pushing his offense down the field. But, luckily for our defense, he was only able to find field goals when they needed touchdowns. And that made all the difference, because it was another win where it could have gone either way. This was the best game for our offense in terms of looking like a real NFL offense for more than just one drive each half or one half and not the other. There was still stagnation, like for the second quarter, but Kevin Patchello found a way to right the ship in the second half and the offense was able to make plays when needed and feed their stars. Jalen Hurts had a perfect passer rating. A.J. Brown had a big game with a couple of nice clutch touchdowns, and Smitty did what he does when our offense is rolling, catching deep balls and breaking the opposing defense's will. Overall, the best performance for 60 minutes this season, but still plenty of room for improvement. The defense was much better, especially in the red zone. They definitely bent but did not break in a big way, only giving up 1 touchdown and holding the Vikings to only field goals, despite frequent trips to the red zone. But we definitely need to do a much better job of tackling and our pass rush was not consistent. But we won. Now, the naysayers will point out the call on the near touchdown, but even if you give the Vikings that score, they have to remember that we killed the clock in field goal range to end the game. That would have still led to an Eagles win. Simple math. We can look forward and hope that this can help us turn the corner.
Our next opponent is the last team to defeat us and they really showed us up. The Giants fans were really flexing despite their team remaining in last place after that big win. They were not flexing after this past week, as they experienced a major wake-up call. A reminder that they are still the Giants. But they do have hope for the future. You just cannot give up a 3-score lead in the fourth quarter. That just cannot happen. I thought it was a clear win for them leading 19-0 at the end of the third. Yes, 19-0. Ran some errands. Stopped for dinner and on the way in checked the rest of the scores. Denver 33 and the Giants 32. How is that even possible? Never could fathom that a team scoring almost 5 touchdowns in 1 quarter. Especially only getting 1 takeaway during the entire game. But those missed extra points did not help. A tough way to lose and give back all that hard work by their offense and defense throughout the first 3 quarters. A young team that will have to learn to play 4 quarters every week. But I do appreciate the immediate humility for their fan base because they were just a bit much this week. And hopefully we can add to their grief. The Chiefs look like they're Super Bowl winning teams this weekend. Maybe because they were facing a high school quality effort from the Raiders. That was not a competitive matchup to say the least. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs did whatever they wanted the entire game. And looked unstoppable in their first game with their entire roster available. Let us see what happens in the future. But the Raiders are not looking good at all this season. But they do not appear like they will be sellers during this trade deadline. Reportedly, the Cowboys tried to take Max Crosby off their hands, but their trade attempt was rejected. We thought Pete Carroll would be a stabilizing force there. But Bill Belichick is having a better season at North Carolina than what is taking place in Las Vegas. The Dolphins have essentially thrown in the towel for this season. Mainly because when you listen to the press conferences, the players and head coach do not give you confidence that anything will change in the future. Their only hope for another victory was the New York Jets in the minds of some. But they may be a team that Aaron Glenn can defeat. Speaking of quarterbacks that may have trouble seeing over the lines, the Arizona Cardinals gave the Packers some trouble at home. The Packers spoke about potentially going undefeated, but have not been playing well as of late. The Packers will now prepare to face the last quarterback to lead them to a Super Bowl victory in Aaron Rodgers. The Steelers lost the battles of the grizzled veteran quarterbacks, who both played well. But the newbie did well beyond expectations, as he did not know the playbook. But all he needed to know was to throw to number one. Sometimes the wide receivers are right in saying just throw them the ball. Because Chase was clutch in this game. The Bears have won 4 straight games if anyone is counting. The Saints were their latest victim. But Ben Johnson has found his path in the second city and is making Caleb play much better than last season. Still have to see how well they play going forward, but their fans should have some hope that there is finally a different path forward. The Colts and the Patriots are back. Look what happens when you find the right quarterback and coach combination. And the cultures that promote winning. Both teams are playing great football and maybe they will have the next playoff rivalry. This time without Manning or Brady. But it is good to see. We figured the Commanders would take a step back and they have not had any luck in terms of player health. Down many of their top receivers, they faced an uphill battle against the Dallas Cowboys who play well at home. But they ended up losing their quarterback for the rest of that game and for the next matchup when they will face those Chiefs. The Rams beat up on the Jaguars, who have dropped 2 games in a row after that upset win over the Chiefs. The Rams have been playing good football once again, restoring their claim as a contender in the NFC. The game of the week in terms of hype was the Lions and the Bucks, both teams that you could envision facing each other once again. The Lions dominated Baker Mayfield and his Bucks, where there was no hope for any comeback this weekend. But both teams are still well positioned to do this once more later down the road. The sleeper game of the week was definitely the Houston Texans and the Seattle Seahawks. The Texans are a shell of their former selves right now. After 2 straight trips to the playoffs, they are simply not playing well enough to contend this season. Them and the Ravens may be the most disappointing teams right now. Mac Jones got the Niners back to their winning ways by beating a Falcons team that can be real pesky. A team dominates the Bills one week and lets the Niners run over them the next week. Lucky for them, they are only 2 games back of the Bucks. So, out of the 5 games picked, 3 won and 2 teams lost. The games are just picked for fun here. No benefit than saying we were right.
Based on what we know through 7 weeks of action, there is a great parity in the league this season. There usually is parity, but this season seems like one where you are not really surprised if a team beats a team that has a much better record than them. Every team so far has had games that they wish they could do over. Seemingly, the Kansas City Chiefs hope that they have found their path towards consistency and back to domination of their conference. Many had legitimate doubts over how they started, but now they have all the pieces healthy and can show what they are truly able to do. But we still need to see them against stiffer competition, but still progress nonetheless. The Eagles righted the ship after 2 losses in a week span. Hopefully, Kevin Patchello has truly found his stride as a play caller and will be able to adjust the offense as games go on, use the assets he is privy to and find multiple ways to win. The run game definitely has to improve overall, but much of that may be impacted by health issues on the line. We could envision both the Rams and the Bucks competing for a spot in the big game, as well as the Detroit Lions. If the Packers get back to where they were in the first 2 weeks, then maybe they join the conversation a bit more. Very talented but not playing at that level lately. The Steelers look good, but that defense needs to be better. You cannot score 31 and give up 33 to a team that just brought in a quarterback. They could have almost wrapped up the division if they would have won that game. But the Bengals have life, and the Ravens hope that Lamar Jackson's return can push them into the mix at some point. But the general reality that is clear is that no one is really out of the race for a playoff spot, except for maybe the Dolphins, Jets, and Raiders. A tough stretch for teams above your team may provide opportunities that are not really out of left field. This season seems like teams are not going to run away from the pack that much. I like games where a notable player is facing the team they once played for. Last week it was my Philadelphia Eagles facing the quarterback that was largely responsible for us winning our first Super Bowl. This week it is a quarterback who was responsible for the last title won by Titletown. But this game will be played in Pittsburgh, not Green Bay. The Steelers definitely have the talent to win this game, and Aaron Rodgers has already shown you what happens in games where he is highly motivated to play well. He still has the ability to change the game. The Packers easily have talent on both sides of the ball, but seem to not play as well outside of Lambeau. I will take the Steelers to win a close one. The Buffalo Bills game against the Carolina Panthers will feature two teams with 4 wins each. In a stadium where the Panthers have achieved some statement wins, they shut out the Falcons by 30. They beat the Cowboys, despite a strong effort from the Cowboys offense. The Bills are heavily favored and enjoyed a bye heading into this week. Could the Bills prove that the NFC South is their kryptonite this year? Possibly. The Panthers have struggled for a while, but they are better than what meets the eye. I will pick them to upset the Bills. The Dallas Cowboys will travel to Denver to face the Broncos, who scored 33 points in the last quarter of football they played, and they host a team that does not play well on the road overall. The Broncos are sitting atop the West and some felt would make a run this year, and they definitely are not the same Broncos that looked lost since Manning retired. I will take the Broncos to prevail at home. The Niners and Texans could be an interesting game. The Niners are playing well despite injuries and the Texans are not. But this game could be an important game for them to pivot at home against a team that is playing with a backup quarterback, who has shown that Dan Orlovsky was right about him in San Francisco. I will take the Texans. Finally, my Philadelphia Eagles seek a bit of revenge after a debacle at MetLife Stadium, where they simply did not get up for the game and were embarrassed. I think they will play much better back in the Link and will restore order in the NFC East with a win over the young Giants.
First, let us not ignore what is taking place around us in other sports. The end of the 2025 Major League Baseball season is near as the World Series begins this Friday with the Los Angeles Dodgers facing the Toronto Blue Jays. While the Dodgers eliminated our Phillies, we cannot support the Blue Jays after 93. Dodgers in 5. The National Hockey League is enjoying a great start to its season, as our Flyers seem to be playing much better than they were at the start of this season. Hopefully a more competitive season than what Flyers fans have experienced recently. We grew up during a time when the Flyers were in contention every year. That is why you can never take any season for granted. And the National Basketball Association opened this week and was immediately rocked by arrests of a head coach and player. For a few years, the league has faced issues with players and gambling, but usually it was players on the fringe of falling out of the league. Now, prominent members are involved with an FBI investigation. More to come. Thank you for experiencing this episode of the Christopher Peter Podcast, part of the Christopher Peter Review. Your viewership is appreciated and valued. Please follow the Christopher Peter Review on social media and continue to visit www.crcreview.com for new episodes of the Christopher Peter Podcast and the CRC. Thank you once again. Until next time.